Just when you thought in these passing weeks and months that we were done with the reroute game, that we have explored everything we needed to identify when it comes to making route amendments and packaging up route amendments and putting them into the NAS and making everything perfect and copacetic. And for the most part, you are right. We did a really good job of identifying routes that comply with local SOP or external facilities via LOAs or preferential routing. We took care of that in a couple of videos. We learned how to input those amendments and changes in the flight data input-output application or the FDIO or FIDO. And we did. We did a really good job of that and went into the exhaustive details. And it was a lot of fun. But this video is going to serve as, well, the follow-up. This is the finishing touches on all the work we have accomplished in the last couple of videos. And how will we do that? Well, to give you a little preview, we are now taking all the steps that we did in the past couple of videos with relation to route amendments, and we are now going to broadcast them to the pilots. We are going to broadcast them on the airwaves here in the Caribbean and complete the task. So I'm really excited. A couple other odds and ends that we'll be covering up today, but mostly staying in chapter 4. Very exciting stuff. So I am so pumped that you were decided to click on this video and join me for today's lesson, the follow-up. Steve here, welcome you back. Let's get down to it. Let's get to that bulleted list. The title of today's bulleted list is Clearing the Path. And that is exactly what you are going to do for all of your customers that are currently airborne or on the ground, in one example today, on how to get from their departure point to their destination and saying it correctly. So we're going back to chapter 4. Yay, that is very exciting. We're picking up some odds and ends, some things that we kind of left out in the various preceding videos. We're going to use some in-air reroute phraseology as dictated by the 7110. We'll go over examples and practice. This will be really good. This is something that you can take and apply to any flight plan. Just change some stuff around and go at it. So this is really good for you to take away. And after the video is completed, you can continue on your quest for knowledge. So with that being said, to the sector, ready, set, jets, go. Let's get down to it. I'll see you at the sector. In the spirit of making these videos applicable both to the radar controller and the radar associate, and in the spirit that we are trying to salvage and scrape the bottom of the barrel of all things chapter 4 related, today's first example is going to take us to sector 8 in detail at the Ponce Airport. Now you see there the bay header, there is a proposal there in the bay, and we get a mysterious phone call. If you saw the PBX line, it lit up. Now, if we would have checked our information display system, we would have saw that the remote control air ground or the remote communications outlet, the RCO or the RCAG, is out at Ponce today for whatever reason. Okay, no big deal. And if you were to go to airnav.com or if you were to check the NOTAMs for the airport, you will know that you can call the facility, San Juan CRAP, at a posted telephone number in order for you to get clearance delivery services, which is great. That means the aircraft does not have to take off, maintain VFR, and the aircraft be at that point an IFR pop-up or VFR to IFR pop-up, which we have explored in the past. But this time, let's say that they checked the NOTAMs and somebody called. So we get the ring, ring, ring there on the PBX line, and we're going to pick up and we're going to say San Juan Center, right? It's a public line. We don't know who is calling us. It could be anybody. It could be a wrong number. Somebody accidentally calling a family member, but they end up accidentally fat fingering a digit, and here they call us. So we always identify ourselves because we want to make sure that the caller is reaching their intended audience, which hopefully their intended audience is us. And we are met with, hello, San Juan Center, Taterjet Aviation Dispatch requesting relay clearance for Taterjet 32 IFR to Pittsburgh. Now things are starting to make sense. We have this flight proposal, Taterjet 32, from the Ponce Airport to the Pittsburgh Airport. We are talking to a dispatcher of that fine company, everything is starting to make sense, even if we don't really know what to do. Maybe we're not ultimately familiar with these procedures, and we're going to give the old standby. And here we are going to talk this through. So if we were thinking of this as a scenario, we would hit the pause button and we would have time to do a little chalk talk about what we're going to do. After all, we're the radar associate. We decided to pick up the telephone, and we don't deal with dispatchers all the time or flight service. So we're going to pause and we're going to see what the 7110 has to say, because we do know how to give clearances. We've been over that many times. We give clearances through Tower Controller at Aguadilla, and we give clearances at St. Martin. So we have experience, but let's fine tune it and apply our past experience to this little unknown aspect. I'll see you at the next slide. First thing is we never panic. Don't panic. This is easy. We just discussed how much experience we are bringing to the table. This is just a little of uncharted territory, maybe a minuscule acre of uncharted territory. This is just like any other IFR clearance, truly. And the only thing that we are going to take away from this is remembering 7110.65, Chapter 4, Section 2, Paragraph 2, clearance prefix. Remember that we are not talking to an air traffic control unit. We are not talking to another fellow controller. So this is not like Aguadilla. This is unlike the situation where we are in Aguadilla. It is even unlike the situation when we are giving clearances to Princess Juliana. We are not talking to a fellow air traffic control specialist. So with that being the case, prefix a clearance, information, or request for information which will be relayed to an aircraft through a non-ATC facility by stating ATC clears, ATC advises, or ATC requests. Those three little pieces of phraseology should serve as the vehicle for your message anytime you are talking to somebody who is not in an air traffic control facility, tower, approach, other center. So in this example, we're talking to a dispatcher. Flight service stations and air route traffic control center flight data units must prefix a clearance with the appropriate phrase ATC clears, ATC advises, etc. Now that is probably because despite the fact that they are working inside an air traffic control facility, they are not air traffic control specialists, and thus they cannot grant clearances. So they must prefix the message with that just so they know, the caller on the other end understands that this person is serving as the intermediary, the ombudsman between the air traffic controller who is granting the clearance and the customer or pilot, air crew, what have you, on the other end. Also, just recall that Chapter 4, Section 3, Paragraph 2, under departure clearances, Airways included the airport of departure when issuing a departure for relay to an aircraft by flight service, dispatcher, etc. So in this case, we are talking to TaterJet dispatch, wherever that office is located, and we are aware that they are not an air traffic controller, air traffic control specialist. So we are going to make sure we go ATC clears and also include the departure airport for clarity to make sure we are all on the same page. There could be multiple flight plans in the system for TaterJet 32. Maybe they filed one off of San Juan and Borinquen and Ponce because they did not know where they were going to end up and they want the one off Ponce. This just clears the air and makes sure that everybody is on the same page. We know where the aircraft is physically located and we are going to clear them as such. So this is very helpful. Obviously it's required, but now you kind of see the logic behind it. So with all of this being considered and now into our mental bank, we can now give this clearance and negotiate this little occurrence in this scenario. So let's keep it going. Wonderful job. So let's take the information that we just learned on how to relay clearances through non-air traffic personnel by using the proper prefixes and combine that with the information that we've known for quite some time now. We've done a couple of videos on how to give IFR clearances to Borinquen Tower, air traffic control personnel, and Princess Juliana approach control on the island of St. Martin. Their controllers there. So we have that experience. So let's combine what we just learned with something that we do all the time and make this a wonderful telephone call. Without further ado, ATC clears TaterJet 32 from the Ponce Airport to the Pittsburgh Airport via the Wilford to departure, Borinquen transition, Donku as filed. Perfect. It's an abbreviated departure clearance. We gave the initial route segment. We have all kind of good information there. No need to go any further than that. Climb and maintain 7,000. Expect flight level 400, 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 118.75, squawk 3363. Perfect. We end it there. We wait for the dispatcher to read it back. Make sure that the readback is valid if they are going to give a readback, because think about it, we have one party now that is in between the flight crew and us, and we want to make sure everything is correct because of this intermediary. We want to make sure that the information does not get lost in the chain of communication. So we would listen for the readback, but other than that, that is it. Remember, ATC clears, ATC requests, ATC advises. Anytime that you are talking to non-air traffic personnel, always use those three. It's a phrase that fits for any message that you want to convey or any clearance that you want to give, because most of the time you'll be giving clearances, but sometimes you'll have a message to relay, maybe from another aircraft, maybe from another party on a telephone line saying, hey, can you tell them this? Now you know. Perfect job. Let's move on to today's next concept. Great job so far. Clearing the path. Excellent job so far. Maybe we got a scythe or a sickle or even a weed whacker, and we are just trimming our way and making the path look wonderful. The path to excellence is in sight. Let's keep up the good work. Now let's move on to the route amendments. We did some clearance information today just to kind of get you back up to speed if you kind of forgot, introduced a new concept, and now let's finish the job that we started in our route game series videos. So let's get back to the sector. I'll see you in sector 2. It's going to be exciting. Let's go. Well, we just made the jump here to sector 2. We have one aircraft on frequency, so not a particularly busy situation, but let's take a look and see what we actually have going on. Let's take inventory here. Eastern 181, flight level 360. They seem to be relatively happy there, and we look at the strip. They're on frequency as denoted by the check mark by the call sign, and they have a valid mode C altitude readout as noted by the check mark by the altitude. And as we look at the route of flight, yikes. Maybe we can give something better. That's kind of yucky, right? We instituted Metroplex to help facilitate traffic not only through the San Juan FIR, but also through the Miami flight information region. And since we don't have much going on, one aircraft, I think this is a good opportunity for us to learn not only the route, which we've covered in the past couple of videos, but how to do it properly. The aircraft is in the air. We are not going to relay this through another controller. This is up to us to fix, and we can. So let's think about the route string here, and there it is. Hillary, direct FECO. No need to put them on an airway through sector 2. We can give a direct routing, right? Direct FECO is perfectly fine with not only sector 2, but through the confines of sectors 4, 6, maybe even 8. Might require a point out, I don't know, depending on where they're at. It might, but it's still valid. We can take care of all of that. That is not a big deal. So FECO sounds nice. Yankee 308 Fowey, and look how awesome it is that Fowey is in the initial route string. So we have context in this particular flight plan. So this is an easy fix because we know our airspace. We know the airway that will get them to Fowey, and Fowey is in the original flight plan. This is a no-brainer. This is easy, and the 7110 offers guidance on how to do this properly, which is even more exciting. So let's see what that looks like. We have what we want to give. We identified the problem first and foremost. We know what we want to give, and now let's fix it. This is exciting. Let's go to a bulleted list and let's talk about it. One of the best bulleted list titles is a phrase that fits, because we do so much phraseology when we come together in these videos. So chapter 4, section 2, paragraph 5 states that amend route of flight in a previously issued clearance by one of the following. State which portion of the route is being amended and then state the amendment. This is pretty easy. And they even give a phraseology example if you find your way perusing through the 7110 along with this. Phraseology. Change, portion of route. To read, new portion of route. Very good. So you're saying, hey, change, old portion of route, the stuff that's bad. To read, the new portion, the stuff that's good. State the amendment to the route and then state the rest of the route is unchanged. So I kind of combined 1 and 2 because it will fill this example rather well. When route or altitude and a previously issued clearance is amended, restate all applicable altitude restrictions, right? Their current altitude that they are maintaining is not necessarily an altitude restriction. Their current altitude, it was given by some controller at some point in time. That particular aircraft, Eastern 181, was cleared to climb to flight level 360. We approved it from PRCA Center at flight level 360, but whether it was a restriction, and if you want to get lost in the weeds of when did it stop being a restriction and become their cruising altitude, I don't know, but it's always good to restate an altitude to maintain. It just sets everything very clear. Hey, I'm changing your route of flight, but I am not changing your altitude. I would like you to maintain that. So whether you want to call it a technique or if you think this rule suffices and fits the situation, always restate that stuff. Whether you do it as a technique, which you are free to take or leave, or if you interpret it the way I you should be saying it. But let's take a look on in the sector and see or hear what that sounds like. Let's do it. So we start off with Eastern 181 clearance, right? This is technique. Just be advised, you do not have to do this. It's an extra click of the mic, it's an extra transmission, but the idea that Eastern 181, that flight crew, has been at 36 for quite some time. They are established on Amber 555. They have nothing else to do. They may not be expecting a clearance or any kind of clearance item. They're not requesting anything. They're pretty darn happy at flight level 360, and they're pretty darn happy with their route of flight. Now, you just want to get their attention. Maybe they're going to get a pen and paper ready. Maybe they're going to get the FMS ready to input this route that you are about to give. So it's always nice to give a little heads up, not just straight up ramble right into the clearance as dictated by the phraseology that we kind of just went over, the framework of the phraseology. So give them time. Go ahead, clearance, Eastern 181, something to that effect. And here we go with our first example. Eastern 181. Change Amber 555 Nassau, Bravo 646 Fowey to read direct FECO Yankee 308 Fowey, rest of route unchanged, maintain flight level 360. And you see how we're going to mark the strip up, X out or cross out, excuse me, the route segment, and we're going to put our nice little caret there and fill in the rest in black because it just happened. We gave it in and of the moment. We're not pre-planning it. We cleared them as such, and we would wait for the A side or D side to put that in so it would reflect in the NAS. But we've already talked about how to do that in the last video, but what we did not talk about is how to do it. So for example 1, that sounded pretty darn good. And let's get a read back. Clear direct FECO Yankee 308 Fowey, rest unchanged, maintain flight level 360 Eastern 181. Perfect. First example, done. Maybe you like to give clearances this way. If this fits your technique, by all means, use it as much as you can when you have to do so when these situations arise. Let's take a look at what the 7110 says for the next example on how to do these amended routes. I'll see you at the bulleted list. Keeping in touch with a phrase that fits, still in Chapter 4, Section 2, Paragraph 5. Next example states, amend route of flight and a previously issued clearance by one of the following. Issue a clearance direct to a point on the previously issued route. Phraseology, clear direct fixer waypoint or clear direct destination airport. Oh, that's exciting. I'm sure pilots love getting this one. Note, clearances authorizing direct to a point on a previously issued route do not require the phrase rest of route unchanged. However, it must be understood where the previously cleared route is resumed. When necessary, rest of route unchanged may be used to clarify the routing. So if you think there's going to be any ambiguity introduced by you giving an aircraft direct to their destination airport, what they'll love you for, or direct to a fix, which is kind of close to the destination airport, which they will equally love you as well, just remember you can always add rest of route unchanged if you want to clarify and just make everything known. Notice that you are not required to state altitude restrictions. Why? Because you are giving direct to a fix that lies within their originally filed route of flight. So you'll see an example of what we're about to do. We're going to do just that. We're going to find a fix and give them direct. as shown on the flight progress trip. The only thing, just remember, you just really didn't change anything. You just gave them a heck of a shortcut. So it's not really an amendment as much as it is a shortcut, which I guess is the best way to explain the logic why you don't have to, but just remember as a technique, if you want to make sure that there's no confusion about your intentions, about them maintaining flight level 360, then you can always tag that along in there as well. So let's take a look at what it looks like for this example for Eastern 181. I'll see you back at the sector. One of the great things when exploring a concept, and today's concept being chapter 4 in amended routes, sometimes you stumble upon another concept that it's either good to explore exhaustively in its entirety or brush off the dust and refresh yourself with the concept. So no more than a minute ago, did we just discuss our intentions to give this particular aircraft, Eastern 181, direct to a fix that is in the original route of flight. This flight, relatively speaking, is not going a very far distance. Heck, you could even call this a local flight, in all honesty. It's not landing anywhere in San Juan's airspace, but one center over the primary airport of that center facility, so Miami Center and Miami International Airport, is pretty darn local. We have a lot of traffic that goes there. So our intention is to give them direct FAWI, right? The pilot's going to love us for doing that, so it's going to be very exciting. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, caught up in all the excitement of being the fan favorite for today for giving this Eastern aircraft direct FAWI, as our intention is, we should go to Chapter 2, Interphone Phraseology, and do an old-fashioned APRAC before we clear the aircraft direct FAWI, put it in the machine, and kick our feet up and be very much reveled in our self-satisfaction. So here we go. Miami Center 62, San Juan Center APRAC, right? Who you calling? Who are you? What you want? Miami 62, APRAC CID 809er, Eastern 181 direct FAWI, right? We say that we sneak in the CID because they are going to use the keyboard and look it up using EDST or the aircraft list. CID works, followed by the call sign to make sure everything's jived. The information is presented in front of them. They're going to look at the information, plus what you are saying, what you intend to do, what you would like to do with the aircraft. They're looking at it, seeing if it jives, and we cross our fingers, hold our breath. Eastern 181, direct FAWI approved, Tango Tango. Thank you very much, SX, right? Now, with that short telephone call out of the way, we are now free. Circle direct FAWI in red, remember, because it's not issued yet, but it is in fact coordinated and approved by the next facility. So that is very exciting. And we are going to go Eastern 181, clear direct FAWI. Cross out the route segment that is no longer applicable in the flight plan, right? FAWI circled in red. We crossed out, or lined through rather, everything leading up to FAWI. So the flight progress chart looks good. We might even use the new one when it comes off the printer, but this flight plan is correct in its form. Direct FAWI for Eastern 181, thank you. Now, remember some of the things we did not do. First and foremost, we did not say Eastern 181 clearance advisory ready. We did not, because it is very simple. Like we just talked about, this flight plan, for all intents and purposes, is pretty darn localized. Eastern 181 flies this route relatively often. I'm pretty sure they're even based out of Miami. They are pretty familiar with FAWI. Anytime you give an aircraft direct FAWI, they know pretty darn well not only where it's at, but it's pretty darn close to the airport, right? It sits somewhere along the Flipper 7 arrival. So they're excited. No need to pause, clear the airways, make sure nobody else is talking. This is very quick. Secondly, we did not say rest of route unchanged. It is a given. It is almost understood that if we give this aircraft direct FAWI, they are going to fly to the next segment of the flight plan. In this case, the Flipper 7 arrival, and FAWI sits on the Flipper 7 arrival. It's not a published transition point, but it's on there. The two transition points, I believe, are Haji and Nassau, but that's neither here nor there. Also, too, we did not say an altitude to maintain because we are not technically amending this clearance. It's more like a shortcut. We are not putting anything new into the flight plan. We are not introducing a new concept. We are not introducing new airways and fixes. So we don't really even have to do that either because it's implied, hey, I want you to stay at 36. I'm just giving you a shortcut. and they acknowledged it. Now, you could easily do all those things. Eastern 181, clear direct FOWI, maintain flight level 360, or let's just try that again. Eastern 181, clear direct FOWI, rest of route unchanged, maintain flight level 360. That sounds just as fine, but just remember you do not have to do that. Everything else is understood. And look at this. We also, in this example, got a interphone telephone conversation practice. So look at that, bonus points. So let's go to the next slide and talk about the next concept. Great job so far. A phrase that fits. Chapter 4, Section 2, Paragraph 5 states, amend the route of flight in a previously issued clearance by one of the following. Here is one of our last examples. Issue the entire route by stating the amendment. So basically, you are just going to introduce the new route segment to the aircraft, to the aircrew, and they are going to fly it. You are not saying change route to read. You're not giving direct. Well, you'll be giving direct, but not quite that far down the way. So, with that being said, let's see what that looks like. I'll see you at the next slide. Since we are introducing new information to the aircraft, let's go back to our original example and get the aircraft's attention before we start rambling off a well-said clearance as dictated by Chapter 4. So let's get their attention. Eastern 181 clearance or something similar. Eastern 181, amendment to route of flight, advise when ready to copy. Eastern 181 clearance to Miami Airport, advise when ready. Something like that, just get their attention, get the pen and pad ready, getting ready with the FMS as well to punch it in. Go ahead, clearance, Eastern 181. Eastern 181 cleared via direct FECO, Yankee 308 FOWI, Flipper 7 arrival, maintain for level 360. Look at that, the D and the A, wonderfully stated. We crossed out the initial route segment. We put our caret in there, and we put in the route segment that we want them to fly now. Offset it for the B or A side to put in, and we get the read back. Clear direct FECO, Yankee 308 FOWI, rest unchanged, maintain level 360, Eastern 181. Well done, perfectly stated. Could not have said anything better myself. Really good job with that. That's the way you say it. As you noticed, we do not say clear to the Miami airport. We just ramble off. It is implied that they know exactly where they're going. They're well aware of the destination. They've been in the air for quite some time. They have been cleared to Miami via some form by some controller along their flight. So we are just amending it a little bit, but amending the entire string in its entirety, so there is no ambiguity whatsoever. So this is almost, it's like the second step below total clarity when you want to be understood by the aircrew. We're going to go over the next example and address what that looks like. But good job so far. This is good. Wonderful. See you at the next slide. Sometimes when you have to give amendments to the route of flight, maybe a Lima airway closes in New York Center's airspace, or Grand Turk radar goes out, or the route of flight is nasty. It includes ambiguous elements. It has triple X's because they filed a wrong fix, or maybe an old airway and the computer did not understand it. It rejects it. All of these situations normally occur where we can't even use the examples that we used leading us up to this point. The new route of flight that we are about to give resembles nothing, not even contextually, like the past examples, and sometimes it is better served for the interest of safety and efficiency and making sure that everybody is on the same page when it arises that you give a full route clearance. Now, it's tedious, cumbersome, and a pain to quiet the frequency and rattle off an entire route of flight. And it's even more so tiresome when it's not a local flight plan in San Juan or Miami, but we're talking about 2, 3, even 4 centers down the line that you are going completely through their airspace. Maybe nav aids and fixes you're not familiar, airways that you don't really know too well. Geographically, you're kind of off kilter, but sometimes it has to happen. Shoot, sometimes it doesn't even happen domestically, and you have to give a full route clearance to aircraft going to long points over to Europe. So sometimes it happens. But for peace of mind and knowing that you did everything you could to make sure that the aircraft is flying, and that route of flight is reflecting what you are putting in the system, so everybody's in the know, sometimes necessitates a full route clearance. So with that being said, the chapter and the section of the 7110 that best describes the situation, Chapter 4, Section 3, Paragraph 3, abbreviated departure clearance, even though we're not on the ground and the aircraft is on the ground and we're not giving a departure clearance from a clearance delivery position in a tower or in a TRACON, this kind of fits the situation. Issue the entire route by stating the amendment. Shucks, we are going to give the entire route by restating the amendment. If it is necessary to modify a filed route of flight in order to achieve computer acceptance, right, we talked about that, for example, to incorrect fix or airway identification, the contraction FRC, Foxtrot Romeo Charlie, meaning full route clearance necessary, or FRC slant fix, will be added to the remarks. FRC or FRC to fix must always be the first item of an intra-center remarks, right? So intra-center, remember that's your not clear weather symbol. When FRC or FRC fixed appears on the flight progress strip, the controller issuing the ATC clearance to this aircraft must issue a full route clearance to specified fix, or if no fix is specified, for the entire route. So if you see FRC, it's going to be all the way to the destination airport. If you see FRC slant and a fix, just give the full route clearance all the way up to that fix. Include the fix because chances are that's the fix that it gets tied into, just to be safe. Changes such as those made to conform with traffic flows and preferred routings. See, this is the notes section in that chapter. This is what we are doing with Eastern 181. We are making sure that this aircraft, since they have the capability to do so, is conforming to a preferential route. Preferential routes from the San Juan FIOR to the Miami-Dade County International Airport, it's very much clear that we can send them over FECO Yankee 308 Fowey Flipper 7 or the Fowey 9er, or put them over Hairbag, Yankee 421 Haggett, Yankee 308 Fowey Flipper 7. So we are adjusting this situation to making sure it fits the context of the proper rule, which in fact it is in this particular chapter of the 7110. So conform with traffic flows and preferred routings are only permitted to be made by the pilot or his or her operations office or the controller responsible for initiating clearance, which is us. We are initiating it. When a filed route will require revisions, the controller responsible for the clearance to the aircraft must issue an FRC or FRC into the fix. So now we kind of understand what our job here is. If we are going to be fastidious and industrious and get that gold star by fixing Eastern 181, putting them on a Metroplex routing, we are satisfying these requirements as outlined still in chapter 4, just a different section. So let's apply it. Let's do it. Good job. So we're going to start off just as we have before, Eastern 181 clearance or something similar. You could even say Eastern 181 full route clearance advised when ready to copy. That means that they are ready to copy down possibly a whole Bible of information that you are about to give them. Luckily, this example here, they're just going to Miami Airport, but say they were going to Dulles, Washington Dulles, or somewhere on the West Coast like Los Angeles or San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, somewhere that's really far along the way, and they want to make sure that they have their pen and paper ready, or they're ready to put in the FMS because this could be very long, it could be very different from what they filed. They have no idea. Just get their attention and wait on them and make sure that they're ready to copy. In this case, they are go-ahead clearance Eastern 181. They know it can't be too crazy or kooky because they're already in San Juan Center's airspace. They're about 1,000 miles from Nassau and closing in, so it's not going to be that terrible. Eastern 181 cleared to Miami Airport via FECO Yankee 308 Fowey Flipper 7 arrival, maintain flight level 360. Basically what you are giving is you are stating the arrival airport. You want to state that when you are giving a full route clearance. You gave the route segment. There is no need for all the other information that's at the beginning of chapter 4. Departure frequency, beacon code, all that other stuff. There's no need for any of that. We covered that earlier in this presentation with the example on the ground, the Tater 3-2 at Ponce, but this is the stuff that you have to have in there. Make sure you state the arrival airport, the airport of intended landing, the new route segment, and you make sure that you do your D-A, or -A rather, cross it out and put in the route string and make sure it's ready for the A side. Now, since you gave a full route clearance, expect a lengthy readback just in case. By no means are they required to. But if they are going to give a read back, you are then on the hook to make sure that it is correct. And luckily, as we said, they're not going very far. Clear direct FECO, Yankee 30 Valley, Flipper 7 arrival, main tape level 360, Eastern 181. Wonderful job. You see there? This is an easy example. Sometimes it can be a little more complicated. Things to consider. If you know that the aircraft is going to take a while to start this process, not only for you to read it to them, they copy it down and they read it back to you and subsequently put it in the machine, in their machine, and their course correction starts, it could be a lengthy process. So time it up. We have the luxury of Eastern 181 being the only aircraft on frequency right now. If this Sector 2 was chock full of aircraft, all needing your attention, whether they need climbed, or their descent started, or a restriction, or a traffic call, make sure all higher priority items are done and finished before you start rambling into a reroute, because in all reality, you have a couple 100 miles to make this right. You honestly do. And even if it was a different flight plan, you have 1,000 miles to make this flight plan right. If they were going somewhere far and the route was really bad and you're trying to fix it. Do not get distracted. This is not the highest priority item. They are by no means is Eastern 181 in harm's way flying Amber 555 for 15, 20, heck, even 30 minutes until you get around to this reroute. So just remember that. But when you get around and you find time to do it, make sure everything's taken care of on the frequency, everything's quiet, and go into it. And just be ready and be patient for the exchange that's about to take place. Just a friendly reminder, but great job. So, fantastic job today, everybody, with all of that. Man, that was a bang-up, stellar job. Couldn't say any better myself. It was so much fun diving into the 7110 together and seeing what it has to say and the proper way to say it when dealing with route amendments to aircraft in the air. We covered all things Chapter 4. We were able to pick up some pieces that were left behind in some of the other videos. So it was really exciting, something I've been wanting to cover now for the past couple weeks, and tinkering it to put it in a video form for you guys. So couldn't be any more thankful you guys decided to click on this video and join me for some 7110 action and combining it with some training stuff here at the San Juan CRAP. I hope everybody is well. Cannot wait to see you all again in the training environment. And just remember, folks, to keep your attitude just like your separation. Positive. Steve here. See you soon.